I try to make the most of every trip I do, every adventure, but I'm also a fan of getting home safely. The Madigan line, which we took across the desert, is over 700 kilometers long. Help could literally be days away. Emergency help may be quicker, but you need to be prepared to survive. I'm going to share some of the specific gear that we brought along, and I'm going to cover some other general advice that you may find useful for remote travel. Some people may see parts of this video as overkill, but in my opinion, these are just responsible measures to take when you're doing this expedition style travel. Let's talk about the mandatory stuff first. Driving in the Simpson desert, you must have a UHF radio, and the designated channel is channel 10. So if you're a solo vehicle and you have one radio, I'd have that set on channel 10. If you had two radios, like a vehicle mounted one and a handheld, I'd have one on channel 10 full time and the other one scanning. If you're in a convoy, I'd suggest having your vehicle mounted UHFs as a designated channel for the convoy, and then have at least one vehicle channel 10 all the time. Every vehicle in the desert with four wheels must have a sand flag. According to the Mount Dare website, it's got to be 3.5 meters from the ground when mounted to the bull bar, and if attached to the roof rack, then it needs to be at least 2 meters above that point from the roof. Both these safety measures, flags and having a UHF on channel 10, is especially important if you're doing the two-way tracks, like the French line, the QAA line, etc., where cresting any of the sand dunes you could be coming across oncoming vehicles. Your car should be in excellent mechanical condition when doing a four-wheel drive trip like this. Even if it's not due for service it anyway. Take it to someone you trust. Perhaps you get it serviced somewhere as a routine service, but take it to someone you really trust to really go through the car. I wouldn't recommend doing this pre-four-wheel drive trip service at, say, a franchised shopping center, mechanic. I wouldn't do that. Take it to someone you trust. Spend the money that needs to be spent. If there's things that the mechanic brings up, you could do this, or this might be ready next service, or you might be up for this soon. My recommendation is just do it now. Get that car in as good a condition as you can, and you're going to have a better time on your trip. Spares. This is my spares box. This is all the spares that I take. This is the box I take with me to the high country and long trips alike. I subscribe more to the idea of servicing your car as best you can and before you go, and then driving to the conditions, and then you're sort of rolling the dice, but you're sort of backing yourself. So in here I've got, it's packed in like a game of Tetris: fuel filter, air filter, oil filter, engine oil, belts, silicone tape. I need to be humble here because I did have a significant mechanical failure where I wish I carried that part. But for the most part, this has served me well. So yeah, depending on how handy you are, the risk profile you're prepared to take perhaps, and how well your car's serviced before you go, probably feeds into that decision on what spares you take. Tyres, for pretty much all trips, if you've got a reputable brand of all-terrain or mud-terrain tyres for your four-wheel drive, then I would carry one spare tyre if you're just the vehicle, and two if you're towing a trailer or caravan. Technology in tyres has come a long way, and from my personal experience, I've never had a puncture of a four-wheel drive tyre. And having said that, I can guarantee on my next trip, I'm going to get one. Next up, first aid kit. So first aid kit, if we've got 4 occupants in the vehicle, this goes behind the center console, so anyone in the vehicle can reach it. Carrying a first aid kit is often spoken about in the four-wheel drive community, but what isn't spoken about so much is actually knowing how to use it, in particular doing a first aid course. If you're in a profession or a workplace that requires you to have it, I would jump at that opportunity if I was you. And for the sake of a couple of $100, relative to all the money you're spending on your four-wheel drive, spending on your caravan, maintaining your car, fuel, getting out there, a couple $100 to perhaps save your life or someone else's life that you know. How good's that? So I don't think that's spoken about enough. This is not going to help you if you don't understand when to use things and how to use it. Stored neatly at the front passenger's feet is my fire extinguisher. It's a 1 kilo dry powder extinguisher. I've got it mounted on the Cap Industries bracket. I made a video on these great brackets. They're Australian made. The important thing with fire extinguishers is you need to know exactly where they are and you need to be able to access them quickly. No use having them buried in the back, down the back of your cargo barrier or down in the wings. You need to be able to dig it out pretty quick. Before a big trip, make sure you understand what's included in your vehicle insurance and if you've got roadside assist, what that includes too. I'd also go ahead and check your ambulance cover is up to date. I'm really excited to talk to you about another type of insurance, recovery insurance, which is less spoken about and probably only researched when you do a big trip. So if you need help from Birdsville and Mount Dare because your vehicle is stuck somewhere in the Simpson desert and cannot be driven, you will be up for one hefty bill because no insurer is going to send a tow truck into the Simpson desert to get you. No normal car insurer. Birdsville Hotel have got a new recovery truck. I think they've got a few assets there. They will charge you upwards of $400. I think it's $430 per hour from the moment they leave Birdsville to the moment they get back to Birdsville. So to put that in perspective, that could be, if you're halfway across the desert, 3 days. So it's possible that you will get a bill between $10,000 and $25,000 to get your vehicle out of the desert. They offer a recovery insurance for vehicles crossing the desert. It's basically a short-term insurance for your trip. It's $495, and so that is one option. So rather than rolling the dice that your car's going to be okay and get through, it's $495 for that peace of mind that you will at least be able to get your car to a road where your roadside assist can take over. This insurance, though, at current, doesn't cover most of the Madigan line. Because it's so far remote, they're not willing to go that far. So really, you can spend the money, but it doesn't cover the whole way anyway. And that led me to look at another option. Club 4x4 Insurance have a base level recovery cover that can be upgraded to $15,000 or $30,000. And this is covered in your normal monthly premiums for covering your car. What I also like about Club 4x4 is you can cover the cost for modifications to your vehicle. So you've got the normal insured, Vic Roads value of the car, and then you can add an amount on top to an agreed value for the modifications. So I think that is super valuable. And I've got an older car, so I'm prepared to insure it for a little more, because if the INEMI was written off, I wouldn't get much for it, and it would cost me a lot more to buy an equivalent vehicle and set it up for the travel I want to do. So I compared the cost of Birdsville's short-term insurance and swapping my insurance cover to Club 4x4, and I decided to swap my insurance to Club 4x4. Next, something I'm super passionate about: personal locator beacons, or PLBs. So everyone going four-wheel driving or traveling in the outback should have one of these in their vehicle. These are essentially a satellite beacon. You register it with the Australian Maritime Safety Authority, AMSA. They're in Canberra, and more or less, when you set this off, they will send help to rescue you. Everyone should have one of these. You don't have to be actually that remote in distance to be totally remote. For example, in the high country, if you don't have reception and you've got no means of contacting anyone, but you do have an emergency, well, you're going to wish you had one of these. It doesn't matter whether you're in the middle of the outback or only a few K out of town if you haven't got means of communication. In addition to registering it just with your details, you can also put in trip-specific information. So if you're doing a big four-wheel drive trip, I highly recommend in the weeks prior, put in that data. Here's where we're planning on going, rough itinerary of dates, and I go as far as saying what vehicles are going with me, what provisions we've got, our relative experience, how much water, how much fuel, and talk about the whole gamut. So it's kind of like if you had a sat phone, the first thing you'd be telling responders, who's with you, how long can you stay out there, because this is only one way. You can't talk to anyone through this, so it's in your best interest to put as much detail as you can so that when you set it off, responders have as much information they can about your situation. Another good practice is to give your significant other or someone at home base a copy of your itinerary. So where this is our expected sort of flow of where we're going to be. And if you don't hear from us by this date, then be concerned. That's important information. And I go a step further and I ask the convoy that I'm with, I get their home base, significant other or family details, and I give that to my home base. So then if my wife can't contact me, they can call someone else in the convoy and say, hey, have you heard from them? Are they okay? Because then if they say, nope, we haven't heard from them either, then I guess you've got more evidence that something could be wrong. And you've got a support network there working together. I did make a video on this early on in the channel, which is absolutely packed with information, but the quality of the video isn't great. I'll put a link to that. So if you're after really good information on PLBs, check that out. The thing is with personal locator beacons is it's one-way communication. So these are such an amazing piece of technology, but nothing beats being able to talk to someone at the other end to tell them what you need. No one in our convoy had a sat phone or owns a sat phone or has a plan for a sat phone. We opted to hire one. So Mount Dare Hotel, between Mount Dare Hotel and Birdsville Information Centre, they run a cycle of phones that you can rent. So short-term, medium-term, long-term plans for up to 7 days. It works out at $40 per day. So we just split that amongst the convoy, and we all sort of pitched in to have that insurance. I had my daughter, we had Dean's family, Matt's family, lots of kids, a lot of precious cargo. So having that two-way communication in emergency would be really, really beneficial. Much of what we're talking about is covered in my handy reference sheet. This is totally free. I'll send it to you when you sign up for my newsletter. You just print it out, double-sided A4, and fold it in half, and it fits perfectly in your glove box. There's plenty of other good info in there: four-wheel drive tire pressures, convoy tips, UHF channel guide. Be my pleasure to send you that. Sitting next to my first aid kit behind the center console there is this bag. So nice orange canvas, bright, signaling it's for emergencies. This is my grab bag or survival kit, whatever you want to call it. I put this together during lockdowns as a bit of a project while I was at home. This is for the worst case scenario when you lose complete access to your vehicle and you need to keep the occupants of your car alive for several days. Imagine due to fire or flood, your car's gone. In that instance, what's going to keep you alive until you get help? Similarly, if you set off this thing because you've broken down and you've slowly depleted all your food and fuel, from when you set this off, if you've got a bag like this, then you know you can keep yourself alive. So there's essentially three functions of all the things put in here: food and water, so sustaining yourself, shelter and warmth, and drawing attention to yourself. So how do you make yourself as visible so you can be rescued and draw attention to your situation? So I'm going to make a video on this because a lot of people have been asking about it. So that's going to come soon. So that's why I'm not digging deep into it. But you can really have this as a really tiny kit, or you could go nuts really. So I'm not a survival prepper, but I do think this is a smart thing. Once you've got it, of course, it just comes with you. And if I ever need it,
I'll be glad to have it.
Lots of information. Is it overkill? Let me know what you've learnt. Let me know what resonates with you. See you soon. Safe travels.